Hello and happy Friday, and thanks for tuning in to RadioFreeRhinecliff.org. And this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm, I'm your host, Norm. I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Richard Kopyscianski, also known as Rhinecliff Richard. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Thank you so much for coming. How long have you been Rhinecliff Richard?
It's morphed. You know, it's actually going into Richard of Rhinecliff.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
That sounds a little more regal.
Yeah, I think
so. A little more Knights of the Round Table.
I'm of Rhinecliff, and I like the sound. I don't know. People just say things, and we just roll with it.
But you're aware of that, Rhinecliff Richard.
Yes.
When was the first time you heard that, or did you coin it yourself?
I don't know. I think people say, just go down and if you want to see Richard for something, just go into the Hamlet and you'll see it. And you'll see Rhinecliff Richard. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I guess the double R thing.
I guess that's it. And how long have you been here in the fair Hamlet?
I bought my first house here in 1980.
Wow.
1980.
1980. And how old were you in 1980?
I was born, I don't know, I think 30-something. I was born 47.
Oh, you were?
Yeah. I know what you're thinking. How the hell could you look so good?
You do. You look great.
I know. It's amazing.
I had you pegged as younger than me.
I am, I don't know. So in 1980, and we bought our first house, and it was a weekend house, of course. My girlfriend at the time, Joanne, and I were looking for a weekend house. We were both working in the city. Mm-hmm. And we went out to where she grew up, Long Island, and we realized we couldn't afford it. And we looked at where I grew up in Westchester, and we realized we couldn't afford it. And I said, I know this place. It's about 100 miles north. It's called Rhinebeck. Let's go up there. So we started coming up for weekends, looking for a place. And we were just, a realtor took us all over, and it was all Rhinebeck and everything. We saw a lot of nice country houses, this and that. And then they showed us this house in Russell Avenue in Rhinecliff. And I said, what is that train? And it happened to be the Amtrak. And I said, that's crazy. She said, it gets you into New York in an hour and 40 minutes. And it was like a no-brainer. It was like we were weekenders. We could roll out of bed, hop a train, and get into New York. That's why I'm in Rhinecliff, basically.
That's amazing. Now, how did you know of this area to begin with?
Well, in the mid to late 60s, I was going to the School of Visual Arts.
Okay.
And I had a photography teacher.
Studying photography?
No, everything. Okay. I mean, it was open up. But I majored in photography and advertising in the end after the first year or two. But there was my photography teacher, Paul Elfenbein, had a studio at 33 Union Square West, which is actually Warhol's factory.
Right.
It was crazy. It was crazy at that time. Anyway, he was looking for a weekend house, and I was a student of his, and I actually became his assistant photographer, and we became friends, and I helped him move. He found this great old stone house at the end of where Lubotsky's is down there.
Lubotsky's.
Yeah,
that sounds like an old
Wonderland
place.
Nursery. Wonderland Nursery.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, it's
wait, it was called Lubotsky's before?
It was called Lubotsky's. Yeah. So I helped him move. It was a beautiful old stone house, and I helped him move up here. And I would be coming up here in 1968, 69, 70, visiting him and watching his house, and when he would go away, and I got to know the area. So that's how I got to know this area. And in 1980, that's how I started coming back and looking for a place.
Right. Nice. And what were you, let's go back to SVA. So you took classes in sort of everything. You majored in photography and advertising. And when you finished SVA in, I'm guessing the 70s maybe, did you get a job in New York City right out of school?
Well, when I finished SVA, I was working for Paul Elfenbein as a photographer.
Okay.
His assistant.
Nice.
And it was okay. And then I went on my own with two other guys. We were known as Photography 3, and we had our own business for a couple of years. And I guess I got my, I switched it up because one guy went off because he was going to be drafted. He went off to somewhere, and he did not want to go to the war. And then somebody else went to Europe, and so I was on my own. And then I decided to get a job in advertising, and I worked for McCaffrey McCall, my first job.
Wow.
Probably in 1969, being an art director, creative director.
Nice. It's a pretty good job to get.
Yeah.
And so your peers were getting drafted or in danger of getting drafted to the Vietnam War. And were you in danger of being drafted, or did you have some sort of deferment? Or
I had a deferment. At that time, my mom was cleaning houses for people, and she was cleaning for a doctor, and she asked the doctor if he would write a letter for me, and he did. And I took it down the Whitehall Street, and I was able to get out.
Whitehall Street.
Whitehall Street, you remember that?
It's in a song.
Yeah. Arlo Guthrie.
On Thanksgiving, I think.
That's right. Yeah. I was there.
Amazing. So can we talk about this? I mean, I would have done that, and I've been 10 years older, I guess, because I didn't want to go. I grew up seeing the body counts on the nightly news.
Right.
And also sort of hearing about why we were there, and just it's like, I don't want to be part of that. So you were healthy, but you got a doctor's note, as probably lots of people did. And I guess when you look back on that, do you ever think, oh, that I was cheating, or I should have gone, or
no,
I wouldn't either.
Not at all.
Yeah. Well, hats off to you. I wish everybody could have done that. That was a tragic event for our country.
Yes. And that country.
Yeah, and in broader sort of world stage.
Right.
So you got a job at McCaffrey McCall as an art director. I'm guessing like a junior art director or something.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And what were you working on?
We were working on American Broadcasting Company. It was mostly that. I know there were other accounts, but I can't quite remember them now.
And did you have a portfolio of your work that you schlepped around town to?
Absolutely. I mean, you had to, right? I mean, that's what people in the field did. That's what artists did. That's what you'd have a portfolio, big black portfolio, and you bring them and have an interview, show your work.
Yeah.
And if you're lucky, you can get a job. Yeah. I was lucky.
Well, did you still have that portfolio?
I do. As a matter of fact. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's probably mixed up a little bit. I've changed it. Not that I have to update it because I'm not looking anymore.
Yeah. And did you work in the bullpen as well as sort of lots of entry level?
No, I worked specifically in this group that did a lot of ABC stuff. And
did you have a partner, a copywriter you worked with?
Yeah, I did. Not that I went in with him, but yes, we all, I mean, art directors and copywriters, you know how it works.
Yeah.
They all get together and they come up and brainstorm and come up with something. Yeah. That was Jim Rock.
Jim Rock.
Rock.
And then what happened? So you worked on ABC for a while as a junior art director. You got promoted at some point, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I was working for a few years, and I really started thinking, that advertising, it wasn't for me. Because the idea of, SKUs on a shelf, like Pepsi-Cola can have 7 different things. I mean, who needs all this stuff?
Right.
Again, I'm a product of the 60s, and I thought, this sucks. I got to move on. So I quit my job, and I went to Europe, I thought for 6 months, with a backpack and a youth hostel card. This was in 1971. And I started traveling and hitchhiking all around. I didn't get a Europass. I just wanted to meet the people.
And what was a youth hostel card?
The international youth hostels.
But the card was like an ID card for
it was like
hostels?
an ID card saying that I'm a student or I'm of a certain age and I should be able to stay at these youth hostels for 75 cents a night or whatever it was.
Right.
90 cents. It was truly amazing. You know of youth hostels, right?
I do, but I'd never heard of a youth hostel card.
Well, you travel with one back then anyway.
Yeah.
So I thought it was 6 months, and after 6 months, I wrote home, and I said, I think I'm going to stay a year. And then after a year, I said, I think I'm going to stay another year. And I ended up staying 3 years, just traveling around, hitchhiking, picking up odd jobs.
And what was the longest you stayed in any one place?
I stayed in Switzerland during the winter. I got a job at working a ski lift. So it was like 4 months.
Nice. And were you a skier?
Not at the time, but I sure learned how to ski.
That's nice.
Yeah. That's where I learned how to ski.
And you said you wrote home, I'm guessing, to your folks?
Yeah.
And where were they?
They were in Mamaroneck.
And that's where you grew up?
I grew up in Neurschel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So they had moved after you graduated to Mamaroneck for some reason.
Mamaroneck.
Yeah. So you did three years abroad. Your parents were supportive of this?
No, not really. They thought I made a huge mistake. How can you quit a nice job,
right,
and just go off and do what you're doing? I mean, I was living on $3 a day.
Yeah,
and it was just an experience. I just wrote back, and at that time, there were no cell phones, and you would have to tell them where you were going to be in 2 months, and they can write to the American Express in Greece or Dublin or Istanbul, and that's how I would communicate. I mean, I'd look forward to getting to that spot by this certain date. Who knows where I was going before?
And going to the American Express office and collecting your mail.
Yeah, it was great.
It's kind of magical.
It was.
Right?
It was different. Yeah.
That's so nice. And what a wonderful service they gave to travelers all over the place.
Right.
To accept the mail, and people would show up and say, "Hey, I'm here. Anybody call?" And they're like, "Yes."
Right.
What a blast. So your parents were different generation. They were more security oriented, probably having grown up through the Depression and stuff.
Right.
Couldn't imagine you leaving a job to just fuck around Europe.
But I think my mother really got into the letters and how I explained what I was doing, and I think she really, really loved the idea that I was being educated.
Yeah.
In a way that I could have never gotten anywhere else.
Right. Huh. And have you done any traveling of that duration since then?
No, that duration, no.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I've been back to special places that I've always liked. But instead of living on $3 a day, I was living on a few more dollars a day.
Right. And what were some of the most special places that you really wanted to go back to?
Well, I really got to love France. Different areas in France. I mean, one of my first jobs when I was hitchhiking around in 1971, 72, was actually, I was living in a youth hostel in Arles, France. And this is where Van Gogh lived and painted. And my job was picking olives.
Wow.
So the proprietor would pick 3 or 4 of us up from the youth hostel every morning, and we'd drive out to the olive grove and we'd pick olives. And I'm thinking, this could be where Van Gogh painted the olive trees. And I mean, it was very, very exciting. So I like that. Greece, the islands of Greece. I went to an island in Greece where most people don't know. It was called, everybody, I've been to Santorini and a couple of the other, but there's one, I can't remember the other names. A couple of them are pretty small.
Right.
And I lived with a fisherman there for 3 weeks and helped bring in the nets at night. I always loved Switzerland. It's just beautiful, clean country. And Ireland is one of my favorites. Very beautiful.
Were you working pretty much the whole time you were there?
No, not the whole time. I travel. As I said, the first job was in Arles, picking olives. A couple of winters in Switzerland, working a ski lift. I picked grapes in Switzerland as well. Actually, I got there early, so I was there for the vendage, and I worked on a kibbutz for 3 months, which was very, very exciting. And
in Switzerland?
No, that's good though.
Yeah.
Kibbutz. For those of you who don't know, a kibbutz would be in
Israel. Okay.
Yeah, but one of my favorite things that I did was I was in Morocco for a while, and I bought these rings, these sterling silver rings, these puzzle rings, these little, and I bought a bunch of them, And because I was heading to Munich for the Olympics. I guess the Olympics were 72, 73. So I was on the Olympic grounds, with a blanket, selling these rings, trying to make some extra money. And actually, that was the Olympics where the Israelis were.
Right.
Yeah, pretty tragic time.
Was that the Bader Meinhof gang? What was that? The terrorist attacks on the Olympics there.
I forgot what it was, but
yeah, and you were there for that.
Yeah.
Oof. What an amazing adventure that must have been.
It was a good adventure.
And, and do you have the letters that you wrote home? Did your mom save them? And do you have them now?
I don't know. I may. If I can find them, maybe you'll invite me back and I'll just read them.
That would be amazing. Yeah. Or you could read. You could have a show. You could read one per show, and it could just be a short.
Well, what I did do is I wrote some diddles along the way, and I was thinking about doing something at Morton of just reading these things, talking about my experiences, and coming. Some of them are a little funny. Some of these things I wrote while doing acid. Some of them were just like observations. I saw a little article in the International Herald Tribune. They have like short little stories, and I would get something out of that. I mean, and I have a little book of things like that I'd like to read a few.
Amazing. Were you starting to write songs at that point as well? Did you have your guitar with you in Europe?
No. I really started playing guitar in the early 80s after seeing Pete Seeger at the hotel. That's another story.
Oh, well, we've got time.
You've got time? How much time do we have?
Lots and lots of time.
Humana.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you say Pete Seeger at the hotel, the Rhinecliff Hotel.
Yes, so changing topics. Yeah. In the early 80s, mid-80s, Pete Seeger would actually be on the sloop Clearwater.
Right.
His sloop. And they would travel around. You know what they were doing?
Yeah.
Sailing up and down the Hudson River, talking about the pollution and getting people aware. But in early October, the ship would dock at the Rhinecliff dock, and they would do a pumpkin sale. And parents from all over would bring their kids down. It was a wonderful gathering, and they would sell pumpkins off the ship, and the kids would come down and buy pumpkins, this and that. But in the evening, Pete Seeger would go into the Rhinecliff Hotel with the crew and some of his band, I guess. And for $5, you could have a pint of beer and a Pete Seeger concert.
Sounds pretty good.
It was wonderful. And so he did this sweet little song, a very simple song that I thought was, it reminded me of Rhinecliff because it's called Hobo's Lullaby. And I could just see the back of the turn of the century, the other century. Hobos hopping the train and getting off here, and it just reminded me of it. So I said, I'm going to learn that song. So that's when I started playing guitar.
Wow. And then and you have your guitar with you here right now. Thank you so much for bringing it. It was suggested
maybe I should bring it.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. And maybe now would be a good time. Would you want to play something for us? Did you start writing your own songs as well at some point?
Yeah, I did. I don't, I'm not doing that any longer. But yeah.
Huh.
I played them out, and then I just stopped doing that.
And why do you think you stopped doing that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't know. It's just like I had it never became that important to me. I was doing other things at the time.
Right. Well, you're here, as I mentioned, you're here with your guitar. Is there something in mind that you'd like to play?
Well, yeah, I'd like to do that song that I mentioned about, I heard Pete Seeger do down at the...
Amazing. So good. Thank you.
I thought it was
and you said you play guitar standing up.
Well, I normally do, but here we have a little chord.
You're going to try
a little tighter.
We're going to try and sit down.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful guitar.
It's an old guitar. It's probably from the 70s. It's a Guild. And so the temperature just kind of changed dramatically. It's a little warm in this room, so it's kind of...
So that makes the wood of the guitar expand? Or the strings? Okay.
The strings, yeah. So I think I could do this like... So this is that song I was talking about. It's I heard Pete Seeger do this in the early 80s at the Rhinecliff Hotel. Although it is a Woody Guthrie song. Go to sleep, you weary hobo. Let the town slip slowly by. Can't you hear the steel rails humming? That's a hobo's lullaby. Do not think about tomorrow. Let tomorrow come and go. Tonight you're in a nice warm boxcar, safe from all the winds and snow. So go to sleep, you weary hobo. Let the town slip slowly by. Can't you hear the steel rails humming? That's a hobo's lullaby. I know your clothes are torn and tattered, and your hair is turning gray. But lift your head and smile at trouble. You'll find peace and rest someday. So go to sleep, you weary hobo. Let the town slip slowly by. Can't you hear the steel rails humming? That's a hobo's lullaby. Well, I know the police cause you trouble. They cause trouble everywhere. But when you die and go to heaven, there will be no policemen there. So go to sleep, you weary hobo. Let the town slip slowly by. Can't you hear the steel rails humming? That's a hobo's lullaby. And that's a good one.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Okay. Right here. I learned it right here in Rhinecliff.
Right here in Rhinecliff.
Yeah.
After sort of hoboing around Europe yourself.
Yeah, there you go.
This was the song.
Yeah, there's the connection.
That stuck you. And what made you want to like pick up a guitar and learn. Now, how many times do you reckon you played that song in your life? In the 40-some years since you first heard it?
That's a tricky question. I didn't count them. But there's, several times, yeah.
And so you have wonderful guitar playing, lovely voice. You've got a band, is that correct?
No. Sue and I, my partner Sue and I, we go off sometimes, and she plays the ukulele, and she can harmonize like no one I've ever heard. It's really, really, she's so wonderful. And so we call ourselves Harmony Grits, and we go out there and play like Porch Fest, and occasionally we'll play at Morton, or we've done the farmers market and stuff like that.
Harmony Grits. That's
Harmony Grits. Although we're changing it there's a special thing, the talent show at Morton coming up. We're going to be known as Tostapane.
Tostapane?
Tostapane.
What does that mean? I get the
That's
Harmony
Italian.
Grits thing.
It's what it means is it's like when it means like someone's drunk, like toasted. He's toasted.
I see.
So we kind of liked it, and so we just have fun with it.
Right. You mentioned talent show. There's a show happening tonight at the Morton Library as well. Paintings, a show of paintings from 6 to 8 p.m.
Oh, that's right. It is.
Shameless plug for Rhinecliff's own Morton Memorial Library and Meeting House.
Do you have a piece in it?
I don't, but my friend Stinky has one, and his daughter Tess, and a whole bunch of. I saw some previews, and it's going to be a wonderful.
It's a great show. It's a great show. Yeah, Sandy was hanging it yesterday, and it's like there's some wonderful pieces in it.
So if you're listening and you're in the area, it's from 6 to 8 tonight at the Morton Library here in Rhinecliff.
Great.
But you also lead a talent show. I'm sorry, what is that? Rhinecliff Richards.
It's an acoustic music show.
Acoustic, yeah. And that's once a month or so at the Morton?
Once a month. It's always the third Friday.
Okay.
And I've been doing it, I don't know if it's 15, 16 years, something like that. It's
14 years, according to Sandy.
Sandy would know.
Yeah. She says you're the best MC around. Yeah.
Well, the Morton makes me very comfortable. I love being there, everything about it. I love being on stage. I love
Yeah.
listening to people. The acoustics in the room in Morton Hall
Right.
is just wonderful. So
Right.
and I MC the talent show, which is just always fun. I mean, we have people from 5 to 85 doing stuff, and it's just a lot of fun. It's always great.
Right.
And that's going to be the third, I think. Is it not? I think March 3rd, I believe.
Okay. And that's a Friday.
A Friday,
Rhinecliff
yes.
Richards.
Actually, it's a week from tonight.
Acoustic Fridays.
No, it's not Rhinecliff. It's the Morton Talent Show.
Oh, the Morton Talent Show.
No.
Okay.
There's a lot of things happening.
The Morton's amazing. There's always something fun happening there.
There
And
always is.
you're on the board there as well.
Yes.
That's nice. Thank you for your service.
You're very welcome. I love it so much.
Yeah.
It's such a great spot.
So it seems that you very much have found your place here in Rhinecliff.
I'm not moving.
Yeah.
I'm not going to Florida.
No, right. But you moved in. You became integrated with the community. How did that happen? What were the first things that happened that made you think, "Wow, I'm really becoming sort of a part of this community"? Because you were a weekender from the city for a long time.
Actually, I
right?
wasn't integrated easily because a lot of people didn't like what I was doing. But before I get to that part, I got into the library because of Mildred Young. Mildred Young has been here forever, Mildred and John Young, and she's a real giver, and they own some real estate, and I bought my house from her, actually, so I was paying her my mortgage. And, she, after several years, she said, "How would you like to be on the board of Morton?" And the library, and I said, "I don't know. It doesn't sound like me being on a board. I'm a product of the 60s. I don't know. I just, and I thought about it, and I said, yeah, I will try it. And she just taught me how giving back, I guess. The whole idea of giving back, and it was great. And that was the start of it for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's great. You get a reputation for giving back to Rhinecliff and Rhinebeck too. I mean, I know you work with the Sinterklaas.
Oh, I love that. Well, so do you.
As a Grumpus.
Fellow Grumpus. Yeah. It's great, isn't it? It's a lot of fun.
That's amazing. All right, well, let's get a transition. I'm getting a note from the producers here to bring up the question of wine. I know you worked with the Vendange.
Oh, are the producers thirsty? Is that it?
Yeah, I guess they are.
It.
My
Look
segue,
at
though,
these guys.
is you worked with Vendange over there in Switzerland, picking grapes there. Is that where you became fascinated with wine? Because a couple of people said you're an winologist. How do you pronounce that? Oenologist.
Oenologist. Listen, it's
Oenologist.
a hobby. I'm not a sommelier. I'm not any of those things. It just became a hobby, and I was very lucky. I was, I guess, in the mid 80s. It had to be early 80s. I started to go to the International Wine Center on 56th Street. I worked on 55th Street. The International Wine Center was opening up on 56th Street, and I started going there once a week, learning about wines. I mean, I've tasted with some of the greatest producers around. I was just very lucky. And this was when the Wine Spectator was just a rag, a black and white newspaper, and nobody knew who Marvin Shankin was. And I just had my nose in that Wine Spectator, and I was following wine writers, and it was supposedly the 82 Bordeaux's were coming out. They were bottled in 82, but they probably weren't released until 84 or 85 because they spend a lot of time in the kegs, and then the better chateaus don't release them right away. So I bought futures in super seconds, like Léoville Lescasse, Pichon Lalande, Du Cru Boucaillou. These wines I was getting for $240 a case, and I was just very lucky, and they just went crazy with the pricing. And I built a cellar on Bordeaux or Cabernet Sauvignon. That's what Bordeaux mostly is, between California and France, and I built a pretty decent cellar.
And before I ask what you brought us to drink tonight, what were you doing on 55th Street? What was your job at the time?
I was working for an advertising agency. I came back.
You came back.
After leaving the advertising world saying, I don't need this junk.
Right.
I came back saying, I can do this.
Yeah.
I can do this.
And what was that agency and what were you working on?
I was working for Town Silverstein Rotter, or TSR. It was known as, and we did a lot of toy accounts. I was, that Evel Knievel wind-up little thing?
Oh, yeah.
I did all those commercials. They're so great. I did all the Evel Knievel stuff, but a lot of toys. I did when Rubik's Cube came. I introduced Rubik's Cube. We had other things. Krakow Car Stereo. And actually, we had the Canandaigua Wine Company, which was up in Canandaigua, New York, which is now Constellation Brands, and which is now the biggest wine. I don't know what it would actually be. I mean, it's probably a distributor in a way, but it's in the world. They grew that from Richard's Wild Irish Rose in 1947. That's their first bottle, and it was named after Richard Sands, or Marvin Sands' son, Richard. Richard's Wild Irish Rose to where they are now. It's just an incredible story for the Canandaigua Wine Company.
And were you working on that account?
Yeah.
What a blast! And so that's sort of about the same time that you were starting to build a cellar at Bordeaux. So I'm guessing.
Yeah.
How nice! All right. So now, what did you bring? You graciously brought a bottle of wine with you for us to enjoy.
Yes, but it is not a Bordeaux, nor a Cabernet Sauvignon.
Okay.
It is a wine. It's from Sardinia, and it's called a Cannonau.
Cannonau.
And that is a grape.
Huh.
The grape is a Cannonau, and it's only grown like all these other grapes, the Pinot Noir, the Chardonnay, a Cabernet Sauvignon. These are grown everywhere. This here specifically, the name of the grape is the Cannonau, and it is only grown in Sardinia.
Wow.
Now, I was drinking it, but then I was reading stories that I can't find my corkscrew. Here it is. That
Phew.
there's something called the blue zones about where people live to be the oldest, and they're concentrated areas. And Sardinia is one of them, and they're saying that it's possible that this grape can help you live a little longer, keep you healthy.
Wow. Well, I love those theories, especially as they pertain to wine or cocktails or any fun things. So do you drink this? I'm guessing you love the taste, but do you also think of sort of the medicinal?
No, I don't. I just love it. I love wine. Actually, if it was during the summer, I would have brought a mixed drink. I would have brought something called a what is that? It's more of a mixed drink with an orange and seltzer, and it's called a Lillet. You know the Lillet? It's such a good drink, and why I like that so much in the summer is because you can have it as strong or as weak as you want. You could just put a little of the Lillet in it, and just a lot of seltzer, and it's so good, right? So maybe next summer we'll do it again.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
All right, you pulled the cork out.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do the cork sound effect.
So does someone want to pour these, or do you want me to?
Whatever you want. We could pour. We could get an intern in here to pour for us. Oh wait, we don't have any interns. Yeah.
The owner's here.
Yeah.
The owner of Radio Free Rhinecliff is going to pour.
I've got a lot of paraphernalia all around me. That's it's hard to reach and do all this stuff.
Now you while we're pouring wine, you mentioned LSD earlier. Did you go through a big phase of that in the 70s and 80s? Look at the producer spilling wine all over.
I did. I did. I liked this the blotter acid because you could just tear off a little bit.
Right.
And take a quarter, take a piece, and take it and try it. And if you like it, you do more. And what was nice about it, I was able to travel with it because it was a bookmark.
Right.
In my book, and no one. It was so easy to.
The bookmark size would be like 30 tabs.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't go to waste.
Cheers.
I'm guessing from your cheers. Here's to
Thank you.
Here's to your interesting youth. Wow, that's different and delicious.
It is different, right? It's not a Pinot Noir. It's not a Cab. It is so good, and it's a little cold because it just came out of my cellar. Mm-hmm. But and this is so good with red sauce, with pasta or pizza or anything. It's a fun wine, and it's not a $60 wine. It's a $15 bottle of wine. And I just I like the idea that it's only grown there.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you very much for bringing it in.
Mm-hmm. Well, you guys really like it. Maybe next time I'll bring in a bigger bottle. Oh, sorry. The producers are going wild here, folks.
Yeah, they're out of control. So you said you grew up in Mamaroneck.
New Rochelle.
Right? New Rochelle. Okay. And how was that? Did you have a good youth? Did you enjoy being a kid there?
I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I loved it because, although my name is Kopyscianski, my mother was Italian, and we lived on a block that we lived here. Right next door was my grandmother, my mother's mother. Right next door was my mother's brother. Right next door to that was my mother's aunt. And anyway, there was so much family around that I really, really enjoyed it. And so, every Sunday would be at Grandma's house. There'd be 18 of us. The kids would have their own table, and they'd be making pasta. And
was your mom like second generation from Italy, or?
Yes.
So Grandma came over.
Kept
the traditions alive.
Yeah.
Huh.
Right. But the area where I was living in New Rochelle we had woods in the back, and it was great. We would go up there with our BB guns and da-da-da-da. And then they started building. They took our swampy area away, and they would be the throughway. There used to be a toll booth in New Rochelle, and that was my playground before that toll booth went up. And I hated it. I hated them coming. Yeah.
When it changed.
Yeah, well, it was so much fun to play back there, and then little by little they took it away.
Huh. Well, that's a bummer. I mean, that sounds like a horrible thing for a kid.
I fixed them because I had my BB gun, of course, and I broke a couple of windows, maybe.
Might have, yeah.
Maybe.
Well, good aim. The window's pretty big target. Now, one of the things that is on my list to ask you about, and this
Where'd you
seems
get
like
that list? Wait a
sort of
second.
a tenuous segue, is when the Dutchess County Board of Health was going to condemn 14 buildings in Rhinecliff. And what happened to that?
That was in 1994, and I guess Pete Seeger's going up and down and talking about the pollution in the river really is part of this, I guess. But they were doing dye tests in a lot of these buildings surrounding us. Even this building, this definitely was one. The post office was one. The old China Rose, which is now Kip's Tavern, was one. All these buildings down
Dye
here.
tests for the septic to see how
for septic. They were going directly into the storm drain, which went straight down to the river. So at that time, this was 1994, and so you have to come up with something. And so there was a grant that was written. Actually, I think it was by Sue's ex-husband, Tom Brenner, and most of the residential places here were given somewhere $4,000 at the time, $5,000 to somehow design and come up with septic systems on their own property, and they did, and they all, a lot of these are postage stamp places.
Right.
So it was difficult to get a lot of it in, but they did, and that was the year that I bought a couple of buildings down here, the old Kip's Tavern and the building next to it. But I bought it because it was about to be condemned, and I realized I would have to put a lot of money in the ground before because like a commercial place wouldn't get a grant,
Right.
but the building next to it was able to get a grant. So, but anyway, it was harsh. It could have been a terrible thing if we didn't get that grant.
Because then the buildings would have been torn down?
Well, no, I don't think they would have been torn down. They would have been. Somebody would have come up with money. They would have had to. So. It was a scare tactic in order to get something to happen, basically, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
In order to get people to figure out how to have reasonable septic system for these buildings.
Right.
And so do all the buildings around here now have their own septic system?
Yep. Yeah, and there's no wells, so you don't have to worry about that. I mean, it's all town water.
Right.
So there's no contamination with that. And, maybe through the years, some of them might leak a little bit, but I think everybody did what they could.
So I'm just looking up the street. I mean, it seems, for some reason, I see these buildings. It seems that they're just built on a big slab of rock on the side of the river. Where, for this building, for example, where's the septic tank?
Where is it?
Yeah, and is there a leach field? I don't know where that would be.
It's all in the back, right here.
Yep. Interesting. So
it seems to be working.
That's good. So you bought a couple of buildings, and you fixed them up somehow. You figured out, you got the grant. You figured out how to have a reasonable septic system. One of them, a commercial septic, I'm guessing, for the Kip's Tavern place is.
Kip's Tavern, that's one of the places that has a lot more land than anything anywhere else. It has that place on the side, and it comes up the hill. So we were able to design a pretty decent system there for commercial use.
Okay. Yeah. And they're in ground? So I'm wrong about the rocky bank.
Well, some of it is rocky. Some of it is slate. A lot of it is clay. It changes. But down there we were good. We had to bring a lot of stuff in, but it was good for Kip's Tavern way back when. Yeah.
Well, thanks for doing all that.
Oh, yeah. It was a hobby. I really enjoyed it.
And then did you get the bug? Did you buy more buildings?
Well, actually, I bought my house in 1980, as I said, and in 1981 or 82, again, I was a weekender here. I had a small apartment in New York. I explained it as being in between. It was on 59th Street. I explained it as being in between Bloomingdale's and the Plaza, but upstairs from a Burger King. So there was like a 4-story brownstone, awful, and this developer. Zeckendorf, he's a huge developer,
right?
And he wanted to, tear it down and put up that big black building that there's now. So I received $21,000 in 1982 to move out, and then he found me another place on the Upper West Side. But with that money, I bought my first rental property in Rhinebeck, 61 Arnett. I'll never forget, and I bought it for like $34,000, and that was the start of me, as a weekender to see if it could work. A few years later, I bought another little house, fixed it up. Then 5 years later, I bought a little house across from Russell Avenue, a cottage that was right across from where I was living. These were all little one family houses for $35,000, $38,000 at that time. That was crazy.
Yeah.
But I never thought about buying, fixing them up, and flipping. I always thought I'm going to buy them, I'm going to fix them up, and I'm going to keep them. I'm going to have, the renters help pay the mortgage.
Right. And so that's what you've done.
That's what I've done.
And now you own a bunch of them, I guess. I mean, that's the word, is that you own a whole bunch of Rhinecliff. And how do you like being a landlord?
Today was a good day.
What makes it a bad day? When the pipes freeze or the septic fails?
Oh, that's the worst. I hate winter. it's not even the snow. It's the single-digit temperatures you were talking about, because that could be a disaster. So I just have to check on places. Yeah.
So, I mean, I see you in your truck drive around all the time. Are you sort of the handyman and the landlord? If the pipes freeze, do people call you and you go try and make things right? Or do you have locals?
If there's a problem, I tend to go first. And if I can't do something, then I call I have a list of people who have been with me a long time, and they know that, it's hard to get people now.
Yeah.
We all know that. It's hard to get help. But I've been doing it for so long, and when somebody does something for me and they give me a bill, I'll say, wait a second, and I write them a check. I mean, and that's why it's easy for me. I've always been very fair and with the plumbers, electricians, the tradespeople, for sure.
Right. So you say that you buy them, you never were interested in flipping and selling. Have you ever sold one just because it's too much trouble or because somebody needed it? Or
I've sold a few.
And what are the circumstances where you decide I'm going to get rid of this?
Oh, I guess there are different reasons. 61 Arnett, my first house as a rental that I bought in 1982, I just sold it probably 10 years ago. So I sold it for more than what I paid for it. Mm-hmm. Ha ha ha. So, and anyway, but I because I wanted to buy a piece of property at the end of Grinnell Street. And so I took that and I bought that piece of property down there. Another one that I had was like two buildings just before the town garage. I sold that because that was like a lot of trouble. I sold another one to a friend. I sold another one up here to some tenants who I really wanted them to stay in Rhinecliff. And I have been selling them. And hey, I told you the year I was born. Yeah. So I'm trying to phase it out a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
But you seem pretty spry. And
I feel pretty good. I mean, and a couple of things I sold, I had partners with, and that's what it is. The buildings now that I have, these main buildings, there was a time when after buying these small cottages and fixing them up and holding on to them, a couple of these other buildings came up, these 3-story brick buildings here in Rhinecliff, and I bought one. I forgot which one I bought first, and it was like, wow, it's got one roof and one furnace, but 3 rents are coming in, and I thought that's a little better than, you know what I mean? So I started thinking that was a smarter way to go.
Right. And one septic.
Yeah, there you go.
Now, one of my sources said about you. Oh wait, let me go to this. You were on the Zoning Board of Appeals for a while. Are you still on that? Mm-hmm. Which is sort of related to real estate. And how long have you been doing that?
Maybe 2-3 years.
Can you explain what that is for people who might not know?
Well, it's when someone wants to make a change or do something with their property, and they go in front of the planning board, and the planning board says this is not in the zoning laws, so we can't really allow this, but we will send it off to the ZBA, the Zoning Board of Appeals. And the Zoning Board of Appeals would look at it, and we would take a look at the property, would talk to neighbors. We would try and figure out why you couldn't do this another way. Why do you have to do this? And so basically you judge if it's the right thing for the area, the neighbors, and that's what it's an appeal, basically.
That sounds pretty nice. So a typical thing would be sort of building too close to the property line?
Too close to the property line.
What other kinds of things? Just curious here.
Building something that is out of character with the neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
Building something too big. It's only zoned for 1,800 square feet or whatever. And
right.
Yeah.
Out of character. Now, the character is pretty good. It's all of a certain ilk here in the hamlet. And
the zoning board is not just the hamlet. The zoning board is Rhinebeck.
It's the town.
Yeah.
Right. I'm scratching my head. There are a few sort of modern houses around that don't quite fit in. would they pass the ZBA today?
Well, first we'd have to see if they would pass planning board.
Okay.
I guess. So, Rhinecliff itself is kind of eclectic. You could say it all kind of the same ilk. It is in a way, but there are things that are a little different than others. It was not all done in 1890. So,
Though by and large, it looks as if it had been.
I'm not a modern person as far as architecture. I don't. It's not my thing, but I could see where it could have a right to be here for sure.
Even though it doesn't fit in with sort of the predominant character.
Yeah.
Huh. And what do you meet once a month for that?
Yes.
That's nice. Well, once again, thank you for your service. I assume that's a volunteer position. Yeah. Amazing.
I enjoy it.
Yeah. And the Grange, what is the Grange?
Well, I'm no longer involved with the Grange.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But it was started, I don't know when it was started, probably 1800s, and it was to help the farmers, I guess. And
it was an organization that was created to help farmers in need or get their wares to market, or?
Yeah, I guess it was that, but also bring the farmers together to have a voice.
Okay.
That's almost, I would say that's a...
And how did you get involved with that?
Well, some neighbors here in Rhinecliff are involved in it, and they asked Sue if she wanted to be involved with it, and and I wanted to jump into. Listen, I jump into things because, again, going back to Mildred Young, where she taught me how to give back. Not only do you just give back, but you also learn about things. Right. I'm also a fire commissioner next door here, so
okay.
They were looking for somebody, and I decided to jump in.
Another volunteer job.
Just another volunteer.
Thank you for your service.
But but it keeps me going, and it's not it's not a call from a tenant saying the pipes for us. It's sort of like a nice thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. And you're an art collector and a beekeeper as well?
Well, I do. Yeah, I have collected art. I was doing an art auction for many years for Morton. And so I did buy a lot of those things. That was great. Most of it is local. I have some other things that are not so local. Some photography and things. I have a wonderful Ruth Orkin. You know Ruth Orkin?
I don't.
She's a photographer. She's probably not alive. She did a whole book of the world outside my window. She lived on Central Park West, and she would shoot Central Park in all different times of the year. So she has a book on that. But she also did that famous photograph of the American girl in Rome, or remember, where an American woman's walking down, and all these guys. There's got to be 18 guys.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah. And they're going, they're whistling. One's on a Vespa. One's, doing a little bit of this. I mean, yeah. So I have a wonderful print of that. So I do love collecting wonderful pieces.
Right. Are you going to the art show tonight after this?
Absolutely.
6 p.m. at the Morton Library?
You bet.
Another plug. Now, speaking of photos, there's a photo somewhere of you and Ringo Starr. What's that story? How did that happen?
Who told you about that? Ringo.
Everybody.
Ringo and I were lovers.
Sweet. I heard he's a good kisser.
Before she met Barbara Bach. No.
Barbara Bach, right?
No, really. I think, are they still married? I think. Maybe.
I don't know.
I hope so.
She was a Bond.
Yeah, exactly.
Actress.
But when I was working in the advertising agency, I told you I was working for the Canandaigua Wine Company. That was one of the accounts. And one of the, you remember when wine coolers were very, very popular?
Oh, yeah. Bartles and James.
Bartles and James. That was our competition. We had...
that was Hal Riney.
Wow. Who was that? We had Sun Country Wine Cooler.
Oh, nice.
That was one of our accounts. So we got Ringo Starr to do some commercials for us. So his agent gave us a list of where we could shoot. So and all these lists there was so wherever it was he wouldn't pay taxes to the UK. So we got to shoot. we had an indoor shoot for 7 days, doing many different commercials, and we went to the Bahamas. So
you're inside the whole time. In the
so we're
beautiful
inside. Yeah, right. But Ringo did not have to pay any of it to the UK, obviously. So, yeah.
Well, that's
so.
fun.
Anyway, at the end of the shoot, we took a lot of pictures with Ringo and this and that, and it was pretty nice.
What a treat!
Yeah, it is a treat.
I want to see that. I want to see that photo sometime.
I have a wonderful shot in my office. It's great.
Oh, good. Well, listen, we're running out of time, as always happens. It's sad because there's so much more I'd like to talk with you about.
Well, I own the building. Can't we do another hour?
I'm afraid not. They're packed with shows. These people, Radio Free Rhinecliff.
These people.
But
your own show.
But we've
Maybe.
got
True.
No.
Yeah, but we've got 3 minutes left, and I wondered if you would play us out with a 3-minute song.
Oh. Can you pour a little more wine here?
I sure can.
A lot more wine.
Yeah.
Let's see. Did I mention I don't normally play sitting down?
You did well before.
You did.
Yeah.
Work.
Yeah, maybe I'll try one.
All right. Thank you.
She's a rich girl. She don't try to hide it. Diamonds on the soles of her shoes. He's a poor boy, empty as a pocket with nothing to lose. Sing ta-na-na, ta-na-na-na. She's got diamonds on the soles of her shoes. Ta-na-na, ta-na-na-na. She's got diamonds on the soles of her shoes. People say she's crazy, she's got diamonds on the soles of her shoes. Well, that's one way to lose these walking blues. Diamonds on the soles of her shoes. Well, she was physically forgotten, but she slipped into my pocket with my car keys. She said, you've taken me for granted, 'cause I please you, wearing these diamonds on the soles of my shoes. And I can say, woo, 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 woo. As if everybody knows what I'm talking about. As if everybody knows exactly what I was talking about. Talking about diamonds. She makes the sign of the teaspoon, he makes the sign of the wave. The poor boy changes clothes and puts on aftershave to compensate for his ordinary shoes. She said, honey, take me dancing, but they ended up by sleeping in the doorway. While the day goes in, the lights on up at Broadway, wearing these diamonds on the soles of her shoes. And I can say, woo, 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 woo. As if everybody knows what I'm talking about. As if everybody knows exactly what I was talking about. I'm talking about diamonds. Well, people say I'm crazy. I got diamonds on the soles of my shoes. Well, that's one way to lose these walking blues. Diamonds on the soles of my shoes. Ta-na-na-na-na. 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 Well, I kind of messed that up. I don't know if we're still on the air, but
are.
It's less than a 3-minute song.
Thank you.
I tried to rush through it to get in there. Okay, thank you.
Got in just under the wire. That was Richard Kopyscianski playing Paul Simon's Diamond on the Soles of Her Shoes, and
I wrote that for Paul, by the way.
I heard that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here, Rhinecliff, Richard. Thank you to the Epicurean for hosting us. And everybody have a good Friday. I'll see you up at the Morton in a few minutes for their art show.
We'll be there. Don't forget the cannon down.